In the thin mist of the early morning, the luxury cars slowly departed from the palace, taking Camilla to a place that, for many years, only a few people had known about. It was a secluded villa deep in the forest, guarded so strictly that even a falling leaf seemed unable to escape the eyes of the security team. Towering steel fences, cameras positioned along every path, and an eerie silence that enveloped the space made this place exude a chilling sense of mystery. Camilla disappeared here every year, without her husband, without her children, without any official schedule. All that the royal family communicated to the public were just a few words: private retreat. But the question arises: private for what? And why is every detail related to this villa sealed off completely? Have you ever wondered what happens inside a place that even members of the royal family hesitate to mention? Could it be that behind those heavy doors lies a dark secret hidden for many years? Or is Camilla concealing something that neither King Charles nor Prince William could have anticipated? Today, we will step into that very space, following in the footsteps of Charles and William during an unexpected inspection that shook the entire royal family. A secret never before told, and perhaps one that will make many shiver as the truth gradually unfolds. The villa that Camilla visits each year is located deep within a remote forest, far from any main roads and completely hidden from the eyes of the public. The path leading to the villa is a narrow, winding lane, covered with dry leaves, flanked by towering ancient trees that stand silently, like old soldiers guarding their master's secret. Approaching the gate, everything becomes even more chilling as a nearly 3-meter-high steel fence surrounds the entire property. Strangers cannot see anything beyond dense green and the shadows woven under the tree canopy. Above, cameras rotate slowly, always on alert, as if anyone approaching would instantly become a threat. Inside the fortified gate is a long path leading to the antique white villa. Despite its luxurious and refined architecture, the place exudes an indescribable feeling, like a house not meant for living, but for hiding something. Security personnel stand guard at every corner of the yard, faces cold, no one daring to speak, no one daring to leave their post. Someone who had worked here once whispered in fear, "In this villa, silence is the first and most important rule." Camilla comes here regularly every year, usually around the same time, and always alone. Charles does not accompany her, neither do Harry or William, and there are no official trips involved. It is simply a completely private visit. The privacy is so strict that even the royal staff are not allowed to disclose any details. Whenever she prepares to leave the palace, the advisors only issue a simple notice that she will be resting to recover her health and spirit. But the question always lingers: why go to such a remote and secluded place? And why has she never allowed anyone to accompany her? Within the royal family, a member disappearing from the official schedule for several days without clear explanation is extremely unusual. A bodyguard once quietly said to a colleague when he saw Camilla stepping into the car, "I don't understand why she needs such secrecy. It seems there is something we are not allowed to know." The other replied in a low but anxious voice, "This is an order from very high up. We just need to do our duty and not ask questions." The British media have not overlooked this strange habit. Many times they tried to track her movements, but were blocked by the security team from far away. Short reports were aired, in which commentators raised the question of whether Camilla was seeking an escape from royal pressure or performing some private ritual. Some curiously asked, why would a woman who has everything insist on complete isolation? Is she afraid of something? Or is she hiding something? Each question only increased public curiosity year by year. According to those who always observed her from afar, Camilla seemed to regard this place as sacred ground. Every time she stepped out of the car, she rarely looked around or spoke to anyone. She went straight inside as if she had been waiting for this moment all year. A female staff member who once served her drinks recalled in a trembling voice, "When I brought the tray of tea into the living room, she only looked at me for exactly 2 seconds and gently said I could leave. That gaze made me feel as if I had trespassed into a place that should not exist." Whispers in the palace began to appear more frequently. Some said Camilla wanted to escape the heavy pressure of royal life. Others said she was trying to preserve a private space due to a silent rivalry with the image of Princess Diana that never faded. An elderly servant who had served both Diana and Camilla said with concern, perhaps she just wanted quiet. But the feeling was still strange. It seemed as if she was hiding from something, not just taking a retreat. What was even stranger was that all records related to the villa were tightly locked. From the staff lists, comings and goings, to cleaning schedules. Everything was encrypted with the highest security levels. A security manager admitted, I have never seen any royal retreat guarded like this. Even the place where the queen stayed in the summer was not this extreme. Over time, the villa's mystery made the public increasingly suspicious. Every time Camilla appeared before the press after her retreat, her face was always calm, neatly made up, and she never mentioned where she had been. She only smiled, avoided all questions, and spoke the usual lines about needing time to stabilize her spirit. But behind that smile, an invisible darkness still appeared, making many feel uneasy. The privacy that Camilla demanded became an invisible barrier, separating her from the family, the public, and even the most loyal staff. People began to say that she was not only seeking peace, she was searching for her own world, a place no one was allowed to enter. And it was from this seemingly harmless habit that all suspicions began to form. A smoldering, silent suspicion that followed her every step, gradually leading to a truth that no one could have imagined. Because after years of silence, one day, King Charles and Prince William decided to step into that secret place. And what they discovered changed everything. On an afternoon that seemed peaceful but carried undercurrents, King Charles and Prince William looked at each other in silence. Understanding that it was time to find the answers themselves, they could not rely on staff reports, nor trust Camilla's casual explanations. Only one way remained to end the ambiguity tightening around their family. They had to go there, enter the very mysterious villa that Camilla visited alone, and witness the truth with their own eyes. When the car carrying the father and son stopped in front of the ivy-covered iron gate, the atmosphere was unusual. It was not the familiar warmth of royal estates, nor was it the luxury usually associated with Camilla's retreats. The first sensation Charles and William felt was the chill, not the chill of the wind, but the cold of something hidden, as if the tall walls themselves were trying to conceal a dark secret. Charles looked up at the dark upper floor, then turned to William. Neither spoke, but their eyes held determination. They knew Camilla was abroad, and this was the only moment they could enter without raising her suspicion. The gate opened slowly with the security code William had obtained from the guards. The creak of the hinges sounded like a warning. The path leading into the villa was covered with dry leaves, the air thick under the dense canopy. Footsteps echoed clearly in the stillness, making both feel even more tense. Outside, the villa seemed designed to block all sight, but inside it was even gloomier. Charles pushed the main door, and immediately a strange scent wafted out. Not unpleasant, but causing William to pause, unfamiliar with it. The smell of old wood, mixed with Camilla's strong perfume, and something else damp and suffocating. Not a single person appeared. Even though there should have been staff cleaning, the air seemed to have been trapped for many days. Charles went first. William followed, but his eyes constantly scanned, observing every detail. The portrait of Camilla, hanging right in the living room, made them both pause slightly. The portrait was not the kind displayed in the palace. Camilla's gaze in the painting was too sharp, almost scrutinizing, and the way she stood in the composition made the viewer feel watched. Charles looked at the portrait longer than usual before taking a deep breath and continuing inside. The living room was unusually messy. A few unwashed wine glasses, a notebook upside down on the table, and on the sofa lay a scarf of Camilla's, draped as if hastily discarded. William picked up the notebook and noticed each page marked with strange symbols. He glanced at his father, but Charles shook his head, signaling to leave it for now. They needed to inspect the whole house before touching more detailed items. The hallway leading to the library was pitch dark, despite the sunny afternoon outside. Charles flipped the switch, but the light only dimly glowed, making the space even more frightening. The bookshelves reached the ceiling, covering the walls, but what caught William's attention were stacks of old newspapers in a corner. He bent down to check and realized all of them were about Princess Diana. The articles were from many years ago, many pages circled in red, some heavily blacked out. Charles stood behind, looking at the scribbled marks, feeling chills in his limbs. The newspapers about Diana after her death were marked in such a strange way that neither could see it as coincidence. This was not just a place Camilla stored newspapers, it seemed a place she studied, monitored, and perhaps even obsessed over. They continued up to the first floor. The wooden stairs creaked under each step. A series of paintings hung on the walls, but most were turned face down, an unusual act, as if someone did not want guests to see them. William turned one around and saw it was a photo of Diana smiling, but a red line ran across it. He stood frozen for a few seconds before Charles placed a hand on his shoulder and told him to continue. Camilla's bedroom was the place they wanted to examine most carefully. When the door opened, the room was filled with a heavy perfume scent. The bed was neatly made, but the bedside tables held many unlabeled medicine bottles. William picked one up and frowned. He had never seen Camilla use such medicine. By the window, the curtains were drawn, making the room unusually dark. When William pulled them aside, light spilled in, revealing a small door at the far end of the room. This door looked different from the rest of the architecture. It was lower, older, and seemed concealed. Charles approached and touched the handle, the cold metal sending shivers through him, yet he still opened it. Inside, there was barely enough room for two people to stand. A dim yellow light hung above. This small room seemed like a place to hide secrets rather than a functional room. And then the truth was revealed. The walls were covered with photos of Princess Diana, not beautiful or elegant images, but altered, scribbled, and torn photos. Some had the faces circled in red, others crossed out. On the floor lay a large map recording Diana's past movements. Red arrows marked important locations in her life. Clippings of negative articles about Diana were layered, as if someone had devoted time to collecting and arranging them. Charles stood motionless. William could not speak. Neither of them could have imagined that inside Camilla's retreat villa existed such a dark space. The images before them made Charles feel breathless. He recalled the chaotic years with Diana, the pain and lingering guilt. William felt his throat dry. He had to turn away when seeing a photo of his mother crossed out in red. It exceeded all limits. Charles stepped closer to the wall, hand trembling as he touched a piece of paper filled with indecipherable writing. He did not know what he was looking at: obsession, hatred, or something darker. But what he knew for sure was that Camilla was not innocent. It was not just a strange habit or excessive privacy. This was a truth that made him feel both pained and furious. William stood behind his father, but could not hold back a sharp breath of anger. He had never imagined he would witness something so horrifying. In that moment, father and son understood that things had gone beyond control, and they also realized that this secret, if exposed, would destroy the very foundation of their family. But now there was no turning back. The truth was right before their eyes, and there was no way to hide it. And then, when Camilla returned, a direct confrontation could no longer be avoided. The villa door opened with a dry, cold sound, and immediately the air in the dark room where Charles and William stood seemed frozen. Camilla appeared in her usual vacation attire, hair slightly wind-tousled, eyes still showing the calm after a long trip. But that calm vanished instantly when she realized someone was inside. Camilla froze for a few seconds. Then her gaze shifted to the chaotic scene in the room. On the walls, photos of Diana with messy marks, old newspapers, notes about the late princess's past schedule, all laid bare before her like an undeniable indictment. Charles stood with his back to the door, shoulders heavy as if carrying a storm of emotions. When he turned around, his face no longer bore the usual calm of a king. It was the expression of a man who had witnessed something beyond endurance. William stood next to his father, eyes colder than ever. He looked at Camilla as if she were someone who had crossed the final boundary of respect. The silence stretched, making Camilla's footsteps echo strangely. She spoke first, a tone trying to stay calm but unable to hide her embarrassment. She asked what they were doing there and why they were searching through this place. Charles stepped forward, his voice hoarse as if he had been holding back for too long. He said that he wanted to know the truth. He wanted to understand why the secret house that Camilla claimed was a retreat contained a space full of hatred aimed at the woman who had once been his wife and the mother of his two children. Charles asked what this meant. Why were there defaming images? Why were there collaged newspaper articles filled with malice? Why was there a map to track every step Diana had taken while she was alive? His voice trembled, unsure if it was anger or pain. William stood there, clenching his fists. He could no longer maintain composure. He stepped forward, pointed at the photos, and questioned Camilla about how she could keep such things. He said this was not historical research, as she had told some close associates. This was obsession, a cruelty that could not be justified. Camilla stepped back half a step, but immediately regained her stance. She lifted her head high, offering the explanation that everything was merely documentation to understand the past. She said that to survive in the harsh royal environment, she had to understand what had happened before. She claimed that the scribbled photos were left by previous staff and that she could not control everything. She tried to make it seem like a coincidence and a misunderstanding, but Charles did not believe her. William even less so. Their faces said it all. Camilla continued to explain that she did not intend to insult Diana, that she only wanted to learn from past mistakes. Yet her voice no longer sounded convincing. A flicker of anxiety appeared in her eyes, but was quickly masked by her usual coldness. Charles exclaimed that he could not believe what he was hearing. William stepped closer, his voice low but heavy. He said that for years they had tried to maintain peace, to protect the family from unnecessary conflicts. But the scene before them showed that Camilla had not only harbored resentment toward Diana but nurtured it, turning it into a terrifying ritual. He said this was not the behavior of someone trying to build the image of a queen in public. This was the act of someone obsessed. The atmosphere in the room thickened as if it were about to burst. Charles looked around the room, then back at the woman who had shared most of his later life. He asked Camilla how much of what she had said was true. He said he felt betrayed, not just because of the past between her and Diana, but because she had kept this secret for so long. She had created an entire private world in the villa, a world he and his son knew nothing about. Camilla suddenly became defensive, saying she too had endured pressure and judgment for decades. That if she kept Diana's materials, it was only a way to release emotions she could not share with anyone else. She said they did not understand what she had been through, but her words only made the atmosphere boil further. William said that no one forced her to harbor hatred. No one compelled her to defame someone who had passed away. He said that if Camilla truly wanted acceptance in this family, she would not have done this. She had not built an entire room to reinforce her jealousy towards someone gone. Charles sat down in a nearby chair, hand on his forehead. There was a moment of emptiness in his eyes, as if questioning what he had overlooked all these years. The disappointment was so evident that Camilla could no longer continue her previous justifications. The room became eerily silent. Only the heavy breathing of three people standing amid the emotional storm remained. Camilla finally sighed, but instead of apologizing or admitting wrongdoing, she said they were overreacting, that the press would exaggerate everything if they found out, that the important thing now was to suppress the story before it became a scandal. That statement made William laugh bitterly. He said she only cared about her reputation, not the truth or the pain these actions caused others. Charles stood up, his gaze colder than ever. He said that everything had surpassed the limit of forgiveness. He did not yell. He did not smash anything. But the disappointment in his voice was stronger than any scream. He stared at Camilla for a long time, as if trying to find a part of the person he once trusted. But it seemed he could not. The confrontation was not just an emotional storm. It was a moment when the entire foundation of the royal family shook. Camilla stood there alone in the dark room, while Charles and William stepped out like people who had just lost something important that they would never regain. But the story did not end there. This horrifying truth soon leaked out, and the world immediately learned of it. As soon as the photos and notes from Camilla's villa were revealed, social media exploded. Millions of comments, shares, and posts appeared within hours, creating an unprecedented public outcry for any royal family member. The previously hidden images, the documents and photos of Diana defaced with mocking symbols, and the maps tracking her movements now appeared across newspapers, blogs, and social media. The public could not imagine that a member of the royal family could harbor such dark, obsessive feelings and build a temple of hatred in their own villa. This truth stunned and outraged audiences worldwide. In the first hours, international media continuously reported with shocking headlines. Television news broadcast images exposing the entire villa, from the library with walls covered in Diana's photos, to the bedroom with notes and tracking records, and the collage newspaper clippings with malicious content. Every photo, every small detail became a topic for analysis and commentary, making the public clearly feel the severity of the scandal. Not only the British public, but also international audiences, from Europe to the Americas, followed closely, with every development updated minute by minute. Immediately after the information spread, the royal family went into a state of alert. Emergency meetings were held continuously at the palace, from large conference rooms to small private rooms, where Charles, William, and senior advisors discussed every step. The atmosphere was so tense that every glance and every gesture was analyzed in detail. Charles sat in silence, listening to reports from the advisors, his hands never leaving the documents containing the leaked images and notes. William stood next to his father, his shoulders tense, his voice occasionally raised, emphasizing the serious consequences that could occur if the public continued to be outraged and the media dug deeper into the details. Every decision, every move was carefully considered, as a small mistake could severely damage the royal family's reputation. While the royal family scrambled to control the situation, Camilla decided to appear before the public in a special television broadcast. She tried to explain, her voice gentle but tense, that everything she did was only meant to honor Diana and study history. She said that the notes and photos were not expressions of hatred, but a way to better understand the past and the relationships within the royal family. However, this explanation not only failed to reduce public outrage, but also made the public ridicule her even more. Social media was flooded with criticism, from sick to cruel, with many calling her actions inhumane and unacceptable. Media experts analyzed live, examining every detail, every photo, every collage newspaper article. They compared Camilla's behavior to the standards the public expected from a member of the royal family, while highlighting the contrast with Diana's image in the past. Commentators emphasized that this behavior not only damaged Camilla's personal reputation, but also threatened the credibility of the entire royal family. Every detail was scrutinized, from the arrangement of photos in the villa, the writings on the walls, to the notes tracking schedules, making the audience feel as if they were directly witnessing the entire psychological maze inside that remote house. Social media became the battleground for fierce debates between opposing viewpoints. Some defended the royal family, claiming it was a personal act and did not represent the institution, while others criticized harshly, arguing that it was evidence of obsession and pathological hatred. Related hashtags quickly trended, with millions commenting, sharing images, and posting in-depth analyses. Online articles attracted millions of views within hours, increasing pressure on both Camilla and the royal family. The royal family could not ignore the situation. Advisors proposed multiple response scenarios, from limiting statements, controlling information, to preparing urgent meetings with the media to clarify positions. However, any action had to be extremely cautious, as public sensitivity was so high that a single unconvincing explanation could trigger a wave of criticism. Charles had to consider each step carefully, maintaining the royal family's credibility while staying calm under pressure from international media. William continuously monitored developments, ready to support his father, but the pressure clearly left both tense. Meanwhile, Camilla became more stressed than ever. Her television appearance did not achieve the desired result. Instead, she faced relentless questions, ridicule, and public opposition. Every explanation she offered was analyzed in detail, refuted, and mocked, giving the impression that she was constantly under a microscope. The mounting psychological pressure made her isolation, tension, and anxiety increasingly evident. Audiences following every development on television, social media, and news sites could feel the tension and shock. Every detail, from Camilla's expressions, gestures, and tone on television to expert commentary, created a vivid experience, making viewers feel as if they were witnessing the scandal directly from inside the royal family. The public storm was not merely commentary, but a massive psychological pressure, forcing Camilla to face consequences beyond her control. In-depth analysis programs continuously replayed every moment, every image from the villa, from the royal family meetings, to Camilla's televised explanations. Videos dissected handwriting, room layouts, arrangements, and minor details, fueling public outrage and attention. Commentators emphasized that this behavior reflected obsession and lack of control, creating an image of Camilla entirely different from the royal persona the public once knew. This leaked event became a topic of discussion not only in the UK, but globally. Experts, journalists, and fans offered opinions, predictions, comparisons, and analyses of Camilla's actions. All this placed the royal family under extreme stress, requiring caution in every move and careful consideration of every word. The media storm maximized pressure on Camilla, highlighting the severity of the scandal she had caused. Finally, after weeks of continuous pressure from the public, media, and royal family, people began to realize that the consequences of this scandal would last for years. Camilla was forced to confront everything that had been exposed, while the royal family had to find ways to protect reputation, credibility, and internal stability. Audiences could sense every tense moment, every intense reaction, and every failed explanation, forming a shocking portrait of an unprecedented media and public crisis within the British royal family. And when all efforts to explain failed, Camilla realized that public life no longer had a place for her. From the moment she stepped into the villa, there were no more curious glances or polite gestures from officials. No more social smiles at ceremonies. Only a heavy, isolating, and pressurized atmosphere remained, where Camilla had to face her own actions. Every room, every wall, every object in the villa seemed to remind her of the secrets just exposed, like a warning that could not be ignored. The royal family faced a difficult situation. They had to protect their long-standing reputation, prestige, and image, while also dealing with internal issues that had become more complex than ever. Senior advisors continuously consulted Charles and William on how to respond, but no option was easy. Every decision had to be carefully considered, as a small mistake could ignite new tensions within the royal family and threaten long-standing positions and power. Camilla became the center of these calculations, yet she was completely isolated, with nowhere to turn except her remote villa. In the first days after the scandal, Camilla barely left the villa. Mornings were filled with a sense of emptiness. Even the light streaming through the windows could not dispel the heavy loneliness and pressure. Even personal hobbies and daily routines, like reading or walking in the garden, became difficult. Every action reminded her of the recent scandal, of the imagined eyes of hatred or disappointment. The surrounding space became an invisible sentence, reminding Camilla that reputation and power could collapse in an instant. Camilla began to notice changes in her relationships with royal family members. Phone calls, messages, and previous meetings became scarce, replaced by distance and caution. Charles remained central, but his attitude became firmer, sometimes cold, making Camilla feel that her trust and position within the royal family had been seriously shaken. William, always straightforward and decisive, now communicated less directly, keeping his distance as if waiting for the right moment to assess and decide Camilla's future. This silence was not conciliatory, but a reminder that the royal family no longer tolerated even the smallest mistakes. Inside the villa, Camilla gradually developed new habits to cope with isolation. She spent hours in her study, reviewing files, taking notes, seemingly trying to control the situation or justify herself. However, the space no longer provided relaxation or joy. It became a constant reminder of the scandal, of loneliness, and of the heavy pressure from both family and self. Every step in the villa made Camilla feel the collapse of reputation, power, and her own helplessness before what had happened. It was not only Camilla under pressure, the royal family also faced prolonged tension. Charles and William had to balance maintaining public prestige with resolving internal conflicts. Private meetings continued, where every action and word of Camilla was analyzed, evaluated, and carefully considered. Every decision carried pressure: how to preserve the royal family's image, maintain internal stability, and avoid creating new cracks in family relationships. This difficulty made the palace atmosphere heavy, tense, and sometimes chillingly paralyzing. Gradually, Camilla sensed her collapse not only in reputation, but also in personal power. The relationships she once relied on became distant and cautious, forcing her to turn to solitude as the only way to protect herself. Royal advisors and staff no longer dared approach closely. Every exchange maintained distance and formality, making Camilla acutely aware of the coldness and isolation. She began to question whether her position in the royal family still held meaning, whether all her past efforts were still valuable in this context. Each evening in the villa became interminable. Camilla sat quietly in the living room or library, gazing at the garden under dim light, reflecting on what had happened and the unavoidable consequences. The heavy atmosphere made time seem to slow, and every outside sound felt distant and meaningless. Sleep became fragmented, with dreams of confrontations, hateful stares, and past criticisms resurfacing in her mind. Isolation, both physical and mental, forced Camilla to confront herself more than ever in her life. Camilla's reputation gradually became an irreparable issue. Every action, from public appearances to internal decisions, was scrutinized meticulously. The pressure forced her to consider every move with extreme caution, as a single misstep could worsen the situation. No one truly stood by her, except for advisors fulfilling their roles, but even they acted only under instructions, unable to provide comfort or emotional support. Over the following weeks, Camilla accepted the isolation and gradually adapted to the new rhythm of life. The villa became a refuge, but also a constant reminder of mistakes and consequences. She had to learn to live in silence, face herself, and prepare mentally for an uncertain future, where her position in the royal family might no longer be secure. Her reputation had collapsed, and every decision had to be weighed carefully. In the days that followed, the atmosphere in the villa grew dark, tense, and heavy. Camilla had to manage complex emotions: regret, tension, anxiety, and profound loneliness. Every plan for the future now had to be based on absolute caution, each step a challenge to herself and her standing in the royal family. Ultimately, from that remote villa, Camilla faced an unchangeable truth: power, reputation, and status in the royal family could collapse in an instant. Isolation became a reality, the atmosphere dark and tense, and the future remained uncertain. What happened was not only the consequence of personal actions, but also a warning about the value of reputation, the strength of power, and the seriousness when secrets are exposed. From the secluded walls of the remote villa, where Camilla sought absolute privacy, to the courageous decisions of King Charles and Prince William during the surprise inspection, we have witnessed the entire chain of tense and haunting events. Camilla, with her secretive retreat habits and extreme obsession, created a space that seemed peaceful but actually contained hatred and fixation on the past, with Princess Diana as the primary victim. Defaced photographs, itinerary tracking maps, and viciously collaged newspaper clippings not only revealed this obsession, but also demonstrated Camilla's cruelty and lack of control in her behavior. When Charles and William confronted her directly, the atmosphere inside the villa became stifling, tense beyond what outsiders could imagine. Questions, restrained yet forceful gestures, and Camilla's unapologetic attitude caused serious fractures in family relationships. This scene was not merely a confrontation. It was proof of the courage and determination of the royal family's leaders in protecting honor, reputation, and family order. Even as information and images leaked to the public, creating a global wave of outrage, Charles and William remained steadfast, handling the crisis with caution. Camilla, despite her attempt to explain that her actions were meant to honor Diana, still faced harsh criticism. Her images, words, and actions were now scrutinized intensely, and the villa became a place of isolation, where she had to confront the consequences of her own behavior. The lesson from this story is clear. Power is never separate from responsibility, and personal obsession or hatred can destroy reputation, family relationships, and public trust. Charles and William demonstrated that facing the truth, protecting the royal family's honor, and maintaining order is not always easy, but it is essential for the monarchy to survive and be respected. In contrast, Camilla, with her pathological obsession and cruel attitude, placed herself in isolation, undermined family happiness, and caused irreparable damage to reputation. In the shadows of luxurious palaces, sometimes truth does not require light, yet it is this very light that shapes history. This story serves as a reminder that even within the royal family, there are dark corners of the human heart that cannot be ignored. These shadows, if not illuminated by courage and responsibility, leave heavy consequences, not just for the individual, but also for the values and traditions the monarchy represents.